Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really thought-provoking proposal from an author named Jane Barrett. He's tackling a huge question. How do you forge a single, unified identity for a civilization as vast as India's? We're going to deconstruct his analysis of the challenge.
So right off the bat, we're hit with this massive question that's at the heart of the author's work. I mean, think about it. How do you possibly unite over 1 billion people whose traditions go back thousands of years? It's not just a philosophical puzzle, right? It's a real-world challenge. Let's see how he starts to break it down.
All right, first up, the quest for unity. Before we even get to solutions, the author says we have to get a really clear picture of the problem itself.
So his whole starting point is this. Hindu society today isn't some single solid block. It's incredibly complex and, in his words, deeply divided. His goal here isn't to give us an answer right away, but to first figure out why these divisions exist in the first place.
And he boils it down to these 4 key challenges. He sees these as the major fault lines, the big hurdles to unity. We're going to unpack each one of these to really get a handle on his perspective.
Okay, let's tackle the first one, the faith itself. The author argues that the incredible diversity of belief, this amazing tapestry of faith, actually presents a huge challenge to any kind of single unified structure.
And the scale of this diversity is just immense. He points out that, we're not just talking about major deities like Vishnu and Shiva. There are countless regional gods, local traditions, and a really deep culture of following individual saints and gurus. Every single one of these adds another thread, another layer, to the spiritual landscape.
And it doesn't stop there. Beyond just the number of deities, the author really highlights the role of personal spirituality. You've got a culture that encourages individual meditation, unique personal beliefs, and is even open to showing respect for symbols from other faiths. So as you can imagine, trying to create one single uniform doctrine in that environment, well, it gets very complicated very fast.
All right, next, the author switches gears a bit, from the spiritual to the social. He dives into one of the most complex and, let's face it, contentious aspects of Indian society, the legacy of its historical social structures.
So the author gives us some essential context here. He talks about the Varna and caste systems, not so much as they are today, but as these historical frameworks that for centuries really shaped everything from your job to your social life. Understanding this history is, in his view, absolutely key to understanding the modern challenges.
This slide really captures the central tension the author is describing. It's this push and pull, right? On one side, you have the incredible weight of these historical hierarchies, but on the other, you have the core principles of modern India's constitution pushing for equality and social justice. It's a direct conflict between the past and the present.
Now, this is where the author makes a really crucial and, for some, a controversial point. He argues that government policies, even though they were designed for social justice, have created a situation where retaining a caste identity is, in his view, tied to economic benefits. According to him, this adds a whole other layer of complexity to moving beyond these social divisions.
Okay, on to the final pieces of the author's puzzle. We're talking about the immense cultural diversity across India and the powerful forces of modernity. He calls them the winds of change, and he argues they make things even more complex. And let's be clear, the author is saying we're not just talking about some minor differences from town to town. We're talking about hundreds of languages, huge festivals that are celebrated in totally different ways depending on where you are, and this amazing kaleidoscope of food, clothing, and local rituals. It's not one single culture, it's a mosaic of many.
And then, layered right on top of all that traditional diversity, you've got the huge impact of modernity. The author traces this clear chain reaction. Globalization and tech bring in new tools, like widespread education and social media. Those tools introduce new values, things like gender equality and individual freedom. And what's the result? A fundamental shift in how families and society work, especially for the younger generation.
So what the author is saying here is actually a fascinating paradox. He argues that what might be Hindu society's greatest strength, its incredible ability to adapt, to absorb new ideas, to be dynamic, is the very same thing that makes it so hard to fit into a single, uniform system.
And that brings us to the author's final point. After this really deep dive into all the layers of complexity, he doesn't actually give us a solution. Nope. Instead, he leaves us with a cliffhanger.
So after laying out all of these challenges, religious, social, cultural, modern, he brings us right back to where we started. Having seen just how big the problem is, how do you organize this vast, diverse society under one common banner?
It's the central puzzle he wanted to solve.
And here's the kicker. This whole analysis, it's just part 2 of something bigger. The author, Jane Barhad, doesn't end with an answer. He ends with a promise. He basically says, I have the solution, but you're going to have to wait for it. It's a heck of a cliffhanger that just leaves you wondering, what on earth could this blueprint for unity possibly look like? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.